doing that thing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective. I'm kind of blown away. We have a ton of comments. Before we even started, people
Yay.
had in the comments ahead of time. So before I do that, before we get into those, if you are just joining us, this is a first-time viewer kind of situation, I recommend you like it. I recommend you subscribe to the show and hit the notification bell so you get an email like I just got in my email saying, hey, The Collective went live. I'm sure you got one too. So
Probably.
yeah.
I ignore them because I'm usually on it at that time.
Me too. Except for the fact that my phone goes ding, and then I go, oh, look, message. I go squirrel brain. But let's hit some of these comments right off the bat. Jassa, good afternoon. Daniel, hey, y'all. Good to see you. Max Sydney, evening, folks. Taylor M, afternoon. Max Sydney, don't think I've ever been here at the start of a live. Usually catch up the following day, but I'm correct assuming this is the time they start. You are correct,
100%.
Max. Yep.
Well, actually, that's not true. They usually start a few minutes earlier.
True. Yes.
True.
Had I not completely destroyed
Did you
the timing
think we
system.
were not gonna did you just think that we were gonna slide on by like that was siege mentality? Let's surround the village and not talk about the village.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen.
No,
if I just
never.
didn't move, you guys would move on, and that never happens. Military transition engagement and partnerships. Hello, everyone. Hello, good
What's
to see
up?
you. We got Daniel Labonte shortly after 1500. Yep, good Max. Perfect. Cheers. And Patrick Grundle, good afternoon.
Well, fantastic.
Good to see you. We got a whole bunch of people here. That's awesome.
I recognize all of them.
That's fantastic.
I was just talking to them about 10 minutes ago, maybe
less than 10 minutes. I think it went by pretty quickly.
Always too fast.
So we have Austin, mandatory Funday, going to be coming on here quickly, and I called it a special guest because you had mentioned to me that you really enjoy his content. I was just
I do.
Good.
I do. And you know who put me onto him was Sergeant in Charge, Army Sergeant Major, the Gunninator,
Tim.
Tim Turner put me onto that guy. And you know what it took? Everyone knows that I'm not the meme guy. Like, don't send me the little videos of a cat playing with a ball of yarn. I have zero interest in that. But Tim knows what I'm about, and he knows that I got a certain sense of humor. And so he shot me 2 or 3 of the videos, and I thought, that is actually pretty good. And subsequently, I ended up kind of watching a bunch of my own accord. And every once in a while, like, I'll tune into what he's got going on. I really like it, man. And
I do too.
when he cracks one out of the park, like recently he did one about where he kind of got not legitly serious, but he kind of was talking to himself as he does.
Yep.
And he was talking about how the military as a whole will put someone in charge of fitness that spells fitness with like a PH. And so now they're doing fitness training, and they don't know what they're doing. And the troops are getting hurt. And 5-6 years later, it's crazy.
Everyone's all surprised, like,
right. No one who's been in the game is surprised by what he's talking about. But the funny part is, it doesn't get talked about it too much, but he's doing it through humor. And quite frankly, having listened to maybe 30 or 40 of his clips, I don't know how he gets away with some of it.
Some of it's a little, it's a little direct, and
it's pointed.
Yes.
It's illuminating.
Yes.
And I appreciate it. And I know this much, that anyone who's in the game also appreciates it. Even when it's not like right on the point, even if it's kind of close, there's an element of truth into it that you can nod your head and think, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because he has both sides of the spectrum as well. So there's a few people that I really like following in that military sphere, I guess. That kind of talk about the military quite a bit, but it's kind of humorous how he utilizes just the day-to-day, every just Joe Blow kind of, yeah, okay, here we go. We're doing this
They're
again.
all the things that we all think every
Yeah,
single Joe Blow day, you know? Like, I mean,
exactly.
it just is what it is. And
Yeah.
I
But
just
he gets
find
both
that
sides of it too, because he's an
he
officer
does.
now as well. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
right.
it's,
I think he plays it well.
I think so.
But again, I'm surprised that no one has sat him down and said, let's talk about your Instagram account.
I wouldn't doubt if he has been talked
Well,
to.
I'm going to ask.
Okay. Because I mean, the funny thing is when I was reaching out to him and I was like, "Hey, do you want to come jump on the collective?" He's like, "Okay, the only thing I can't do is like disparage the army." And I'm like,
No, of course
"That
not.
makes sense. Like that's
No,
just
totally.
not cool." Not only is it not cool, but I mean, it's detrimental to what he's
Yeah.
trying to do, right?
And I actually think that what he's doing, in my opinion, is a really positive thing. And I'm sure that's his intention. And he's just, and it's not that he's calling it out. He's referencing the stuff that we all know, and kind of like sometimes we shrug our shoulders, sometimes we shake our head, sometimes we nod our head. I mean, it's all stuff that's just the stuff we all know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what it really does, that allows people into the inside jokes, right? Because we all have these inside jokes. Like you said, we all nod at them. We've all been
Dude,
there.
I could
Oh,
tell
yeah.
him.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. But I think the key point is that it's illuminating to other people now as well. It's not just the military people that are sitting there going nodding, go, that's kind of funny. I know people that aren't in the military that follow Austin that really enjoy his content because it's illuminating about so many other things, because a lot of people see the military as very driven, very rigid, very like the propaganda style militaristic person as a soldier. That's the idea. Like you show up every day and you're just standing there in front of a door staring, right? Like,
which you can.
You can. Yeah, you can do that.
But you know what? 10 minutes later, you're having another mandatory Funday moment. You know what I mean?
Oh man. And you know what, I think the name is so perfect too, because mandatory Funday is just
so classic.
It's again one of those things where you're like, okay, that's what we're doing today.
Well
All
played.
Right.
Well done.
Good to go. We got a comment here from Military Transition Engagement and Partnerships. I'm gonna have to CAF TG MTEP team here. There you go. That's more, I guess, easier to say. Looking forward to establishing collaborations in the military veteran family support ecosystem. Awesome. And here he is. Boom. What's up,
Hey, what's
brother?
going on, guys?
What's up, buddy?
We're just talking about you.
I'm just gonna get my tripod set up here.
No worries. We were just sitting here disparaging you and telling everybody how much we just like disliked your stuff, and really
I'm disappointed that you actually came into the podcast, because I was hoping that you wouldn't, and then we could just end the potty with that guy kind of sucks. Let's never have him on again.
Right off the bat. There you go. We're already in skirmish mode. I guess we're just ready. But Austin, appreciate you coming on here, man. This is awesome. We both both fans. We both watch your stuff, and we were just talking about how relatable it is, but not just us, to like everybody. So,
right, yeah. I it's been surprising hearing that from so many people, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun too.
And Shaun, you had a specific question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I do. So first of all, I'll establish that, as Chance just said, I am a fan, but I'm a relatively new fan. How I came to learn more about you was a buddy of mine who's a Largen and Charger, shot me your Instagram account and said, check it out. And he sent me 2 or 3, and everyone knows that memes and the joke videos and cats playing with balls of yarn, that just ain't my thing. Don't ever send me that stuff. Everyone knows that. But he knows me well enough that he knew I would appreciate your sense of humor. And so the video comes in, and my automatic response is always, oh no, someone's sending me a meme thing. But within about 5 or 10 seconds, I was like, oh, this guy's onto something. And then by the end of it, I thought, okay, I'm warming up to this dude. Now, since then, of course, I've gone out and do my own reconnaissance, watched 30 or 40 of your clips. I had no idea that you were coming today, so it's not about that. I watched them of my own volition because you're entertaining, but more importantly, you've got.
I gotta open a window, so I hope we get better signal. Sorry, guys.
All right, no worries. You've got good insight and good humor, so I really appreciate what you're doing. My question is this: how are you getting away with it? How are you getting away with it?
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people ask me that, and I've talked to some fairly senior leaders in the Army at least, and they really like what I'm doing. They like that I'm poking fun at, really, really what it is I'm poking fun at the things that they don't want to promote. You know what I mean? And so, I'm kind of getting after Army goals because senior Army leadership, and really Army leadership in general, the vast majority of it is really, really great, right? It's just a few people that really make people's lives miserable. And, and so I wouldn't say that I'm getting away with it because I'm following the rules. You know what I mean? I make sure that people understand that I'm not officially representing the DoD. I'm not disparaging any specific person. I'm really more poking fun at the things that, quite frankly, we all dislike. A person I respect very much, who I called a couple months after I started doing this, after I'd already gotten fairly big. And this is a person who, if he had told me, hey, I don't think this is a good idea, would have shut it down then and there. But he told me he loves it. And the way he described it is, he said, you're just saying the things that everybody's thinking, but nobody will say in public. And so I loved that. I thought that was a really great way to describe it,
Well, before you hopped in, Chance and I were almost literally saying word for word what you've just said. I mean, I got out a while ago, but before I got out, if I could have been standing in your shoes, well, it might have been a bit rockier. I might have gone a little too hard, but you've got the right balance. Your frequency is really relatable to anyone who's served. I think it's great. You got to keep going, of course, until you're fired.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun doing it. And gosh, I mean, I've gotten messages from every single branch of service in the U.S. military and even some NATO militaries, from even as high as 06s. The vast majority of the people that message me are kind of the junior troops and new leaders, right? Guys that don't want to make the classic mistakes. But I've gotten messages from senior leaders too, saying, "Man, we love what you're doing. Like, this is great." And up to this point, the military has not done a great job about occupying the social media space, so to speak.
For sure.
And so I think the DoD doesn't really mind us doing this kind of stuff, and maybe, I can't speak for the DoD obviously, but maybe they allow it with some constraints, of course, because they know that it's somewhere that we're lacking right now.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's a tough line to walk, because really you could get called out for any of it at any point in time. If somebody wanted to be mean about it, then somebody could friggin' cause a stink about it. And but at the same time, as we've said, we're all thinking it, right? No, the fact I actually commented specifically on mandatory Funday is that we've all sat there a bit like, oh, another one of these things. Awesome, great, and you get that big smile, and everybody knows exactly what's going to happen. But that's a tough line. What did, just off the top of my head, what was it that you start? Why, like, what got you to start the whole shebang? Because it seems almost innocuous, right? It seems like just kind of I'm just gonna do a funny video, and then it exploded. But what made you actually go, I want to put this out and actually use it as a way to illuminate, I guess?
Right. Yeah. So originally I started making content on a number of different things. I'm an exercise science major and I love, fitness. So I made some fitness content. I made content about parenting. I made content about marriage, because I've been married for a while and I got 4 daughters. And it's funny because the video that I made 27 videos on TikTok before one of them did well, right? Yeah. And so in the video, I'm like, hey, sir, we got this new guy coming in. He's got a master's degree. He's got volunteer hours, like letters of recommendation from his last unit. We could get him, or we got this other guy. I basically said, like, this guy's a turd, but he runs a 12-minute 2-mile.
But he runs it, yeah.
And then I was like,
I remember that one.
I want the runner. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I as the commander, I was like, oh no, I want the second guy. And that video, I mean, that video didn't even do that well compared to like how my videos on a daily basis do now. I think it got like 50,000 views, and honestly, I don't think it ever got past that. But at that point, I knew like, okay, this is my niche. This is the type of content that I should make. Why I, you know, have pushed so hard on it after I started doing it, it became almost therapeutic, somewhat cathartic. I was allowing my inner E4 to rage a little bit, but I was allowing my inner E4 to rage, tempered by, you know, the old me, the staff sergeant me, and now the first lieutenant me, you know, that has a little bit more perspective. And I'm proud to say that, you know, my ideas and my opinions have changed as I've gotten older and I've gotten more senior in a leadership role. But honestly, a lot of the things that frustrated me as a junior soldier still frustrate me to this day, and I don't agree with them. You know, neither here nor there. And you know, I'm not calling anybody out specifically or anything specifically, but you know, some of the opinions I had, you know, so to speak, as a junior soldier, I still hold to this day. You know.
Absolutely.
Well, that makes two of us. I got a question for you. How collaborative is your process? So, you know, you wake up in the morning, you've got an idea. Is it all you just up in your head, or do you collaborate with others? And I'm not saying run it past them to get them to validate it before you launch it out into the internet, but how collaborative are you in the process?
Yeah, so I mean, I push out a minimum of 6 pieces of content a day, and that's to all my platforms. And I do actively encourage my followers to you know, comment ideas, send me ideas over messages, and I use those frequently. I mean, probably I wouldn't say maybe one piece of content a day on average, or a little less than that is a, you know, something that somebody sent me, or an idea I've seen in the comments. But the vast majority of it comes from my head, and it's almost like a curse at this point because I'm a fairly obsessive person, and I'll just be like just existing, and you know, an idea will pop in there, and and then I either write it down or I film it right on the spot.
I'm kind of the same way. Do you feel an obligation to do it, or do you just want to clear it? Like whatever comes into your head, do you want to execute against it just to get it off your back, or do you feel obligated because you just know it's the right thing to do? Do you understand the distinction?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. And honestly, the reason that I film it like right there on the spot is because I will forget. I've probably forgotten more ideas than I've posted.
Well, that's
so
good because that leaves some ideas still left to have.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes a new idea when it comes back the second time around, right? You're like, aha, a new idea.
Yeah,
so
exactly. I get excited again.
So the thing I really been wanting to actually ask on this is the fact that the reason I reached out to you actually was the last one I saw. I'm not sure actually what the timeline is, obviously, on when things come out, obviously, but the last one I saw, you were talking about not letting the Army become your own personality, right? And not letting just the job take over and all these things. And I think a lot of us succumb to it initially until you get told, like, hey man, you can do other things other than this, right? But it really, I think it struck a chord to the point that we used to have this point on our yearly evaluations, right, for leading change. And it was always a bit of a throwaway, at least in my regiment. It was kind of like, oh, this means an officer is going to put, you know, a new colon in the PowerPoint slide, and he's going to get a leading change point. Yeah, like,
That's funny.
But I think I took it. What you're trying to do is lead through change, right? And I think is that what you've been kind of going for? Is that the desire to get out of this, or is it just kind of a continual? Yeah, this is awesome. It's fun, and I'm enjoying it. Or is it both?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I would love to have organizational impact And I think I am having that, and not just in the Army. I think I'm having it across every branch of service at this point. 9 times out of 10, when junior troops don't like, or when anybody doesn't like something, really, it's almost always leader driven, right? Like, there's no Army regulation that says I can't wear a combat top, which is like, for those of you that are not in the Army, combat tops are like, they're almost like dry fit or like Under Armour tops, right? They're really thin, and when it's 125 degrees outside, they're great because they're not super hot, right? Because if you're wearing a cotton shirt, like a cotton undershirt, and then a jacket on top of that, your ACU top, like, it's hot. It's hot with 2 layers when it's 125 degrees. And God bless, I've never been in a unit that lets us wear the things. And there's no regulation that says that. Regulation literally says the exact opposite. I don't understand. I don't understand why this is the way it is. And so I make videos on that all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a leader problem, right? That is literally people making up their own rules and quite frankly not following the standard. The standard is regulation. Like, we follow regulation. And in any other circumstance, if Lieutenant Vaughn was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do what regulation says, I'm going to do this thing, somebody would just absolutely eat my soul. You know what I mean? And so I'm getting fired up talking about it now. But yeah, so when people talk about change in the military, like, it's literally us. Like, it's not like, we don't need to change the Army as a conceptual thing. Like, we need to just stop being crappy to each other, more or less.
Yeah, agreed. Quick question for you. Popped in my head. It's funny to me. Let's say you're outside and it's 125 degrees and you're wearing your 2 items of clothing because institutionally the leadership for some reason has figured out that that's the way the regulations work. And you decide, no, I'm just going to wear 1 layer. And then someone comes up on you and says, guess what? You're going to jail. You get marched to jail. You go into the jail cell. And funnily enough, in jail, they apply regulations. So now you just get to wear 1 layer. You know what I'm saying?
I love it.
Crazy, right? That's fantastic.
Yeah. So funny.
What was the actual question, though, Shaun? You just kind of
no, it was just an observation on how you can. Well, I mean, I'm going to propose the obvious. It's funny how you can be in a circumstance where that doesn't apply, but move 10 feet to the left in a different quote unquote institution called now you're going to jail institution. And again, things shift in a split second the moment you cross a transitional line.
Right.
It is pretty hilarious. So the show normally isn't really an interviewee show. I think Shaun and I, every so often, we bring somebody on that we just really want to ask questions. But the thing I'm really wondering is, when you made the transition from NCO to officer, did you notice any sort of shift in yourself? Like, did you all of a sudden be like, you know what, I really want to be X, and like went down that path a lot more, something like that?
Yeah, 100%. There's kind of 2 thoughts I have about it. So number 1, I thought as a, and sorry if there's car noises in the background, the window's open. I have to do it or I won't get signal where I'm at. But yeah, so I kind of looked at it as a fresh start for myself. And I don't know that I even needed a fresh start, but I took it that way. I used it as a fresh start, and I even went back to the same unit for a couple months while I waited to go to BOLIC, which is like officer job school. And I went back to the same unit with primarily the same people, and they a couple months into it, a couple of them came up to me and they were like, "You seem completely different. Like, you're not like you," and in a good way, they said in a good way. And so I took it as a fresh start. I decided to reel in some of my emotions and stop wearing my heart on my sleeve so much, because even as a staff sergeant, I found that was extremely stressful for people at times, especially junior troops. Like, even if you're not pissed off at them, if you're just generally pissed off and like stomping around, like, it's not fun. So I decided to kind of bring that in a little bit. But there also is a difference in the way that we need officers and NCOs to act. You know what I mean? Like, we need a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I think both sides could pull from the other. at times, right? There's pros and cons to both, but I tried to act, I guess, more officerly.
So when you went back to your unit for a couple of months and they noted that there was a difference in whether it was your posture, your attitude, whatever it was, what was it? What was it?
What did they notice?
Is it your sense of purpose, a new sense of purpose? Was it what was it?
I guess there were a decent number of people that I had some level of friction with. And honestly, a few of them came up to me after I got back, and they were like, I was worried when you were coming back because now, like, I'm senior in rank to them, and before I was either a peer or they outranked me. And they were like, I was worried when you were coming back. Like, I thought you were going to take out your frustration on me or whatever. And, when I got back, my OIC recognized that it was kind of an awkward situation. And so he pulled a lot of people into a room and he was like, hey, look, guys, Staff Sergeant Vaughn is now Lieutenant Vaughn. Like, he's sir now. You guys need to treat him like an officer. And so I appreciated that. He kind of made that, he addressed the elephant in the room.
Cleared the slate. Yeah.
And so that was cool. And then everybody, cool. And it's funny because, like, I make a point of using rank when I talk, especially like with NCOs. And so, I wasn't calling people by their names. I was calling them Sergeant so-and-so. And I think that's important. I think that's an important distinction, especially for soldiers to see, because they earned that rank. You know what I mean? I could have just called them by their name, but I don't know. To me, it just, that's just an example of something that I tried to do, to show them some level of respect.
Yeah, I think there's a time and place for that rank, as you were just discussing, and that transition between junior to senior is an important moment. And it's awesome that someone set the stage for you as they did to allow you to proceed forward in that new capacity. But I find, just for anyone who's listening out there, you're right on the money. I just want to give the other piece to it, and that's rank works in certain circumstances, but in other circumstances, maybe in more elite units, or maybe where it's been a crew that's been working together for a long time. At least when I was in tier 1, there was no rank. It was just first name basis. Didn't matter what your rank was. It was, hey, Pete, can you come on over here and blah, blah, blah. So it depends on the circumstances. Rank has its place 100%, but in certain circumstances, it's not that effective.
I do really like the point of Austin, both of you guys' points. I mean, you guys are right on the money on both sides of that. And I think there, as you said, there's a time and a place, right? There's always a time and a place. And even if you are best friends with somebody that gets newly promoted, absolutely use their rank. And I find that at least from my experience, the guys that I hung around with, I had a very negative experience in my time in the military. So I can't say fully negative, but there was I had a lot of issues with it. And the key thing for that was the daily disciplines, the little ones. And as I let those go, my experience changed, right? And then as I instituted them when I got posted and went into a new area, I reinstituted all those daily disciplines that I was normally doing that I wasn't doing previously. And again, my experience changed. And I just wanted to point that out, is that that's what it comes down to, is little daily disciplines, right? Using rank, saying sir, adding those little things in, and it's for you as well as for them.
Yep.
I think that's part of it. So
100%.
I got a quick little comment here. It says, Max Sidney says, I feel like using the rank of a peer that's been promoted is also a kind of way of celebrating his success in a way we wish to be treated if we were in his shoes. And that is a great point as well. I like that a lot.
100%. Yeah, great point.
Do you find that since as you became senior and you've became a lieutenant, and then you started all these videos and stuff like that, has that helped within your own leadership availability? Do you think like by kind of getting it off your chest, getting those emotions out, getting those thoughts out, the same thoughts that we all have, do you think that helped you become a better leader, Go ahead. better in general, I guess.
Yeah, I would say that it. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a it's kind of a fun way to vent my frustrations. Thankfully, in my current organization, like, I mean, there's things that we disagree with no matter what. You know what I mean? But gosh, 99% of the time in my current organization, it's great. You know, I love it. I have great leaders. I have leaders that, in a lot of ways, have advocated for me, that make sure that I get what I need and hold me accountable when I need to be held accountable. Um, you know, and it's kind of funny. I don't know if it's a sign of institutional change or if I've just gotten lucky. But the last 2 units that I've been in for significant periods of time have been like that. The unit that I was in as kind of a transitional unit when I made O1, I wasn't in it long enough to truly get a feel for it, I don't think. But I was in a brigade support battalion, so it's a logistics battalion, and now I'm in an MI battalion, and both of them have been phenomenal.
I like that.
I got a question for you on, so here in Canada, the Canadian military as a whole is struggling a little bit with not only retention, but also new members, recruits coming in. And I know that that's also an issue down in the United States. I don't know the comparatives between which country is struggling the most right now, but I'll just go with Canada is struggling a little bit. And so, as part of what we're doing over here, and I've got another little social media gig that I do as well, I'm trying to figure out ways to maybe collaborate is the wrong word, but engage with the military as a whole now. In fact, there's someone on here right now as a guest who's tracking what we're talking about from a military transition group, and just trying to figure out a better way to maybe work with the institution as veterans in order to facilitate a better retention rate, facilitate a better recruitment rate. And so have you given that any thought strategically or tactically in what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I mean, the DoD did a great study. It might have been the DoD. It was either the DoD or the Army, but one of those organizations did a really great study, and they basically determined that the biggest deciding factor on whether a junior troop would stay in the military or not was their first or second line leader.
Right.
Yeah, and so it makes a lot of sense because, you know, a lot of times a first sergeant or a company commander would be making my life miserable in the military, but way more often it was my first or second line leader.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I would say making sure that those junior leaders are getting the mentorship and coaching that they need, and also holding them accountable. Like, I was not mature as a Sergeant E5. I was not a mature person. Like, I was like 25, 24 years old. You know what I mean? Like, I still had some growing to do. And so I made mistakes based on that. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think I made any irrevocable mistakes. But, you know, I was not a lot older than the people who I was a supervisor for. And so there were mistakes that were made because of that. I wish I would have had leaders at that time specifically that would have, like, almost taken me by the neck and been like, "Chill out, man." You know what I mean?
Me too. Yeah, I needed to be choked several years into my career so that I could learn how to choke others. So
yeah.
Well,
And so I got to that brigade support battalion I was in, and I had chilled out a little bit at that point, you know. But yeah, making sure that your junior leaders have some good mentorship and coaching is, I think, is a huge part of it.
okay, so I do have a follow-on question, and it's more of a challenging question with this stage set now. So, with that said, what have you considered as a possibility or an opportunity to make that happen, make that better for those junior leaders? Have you given any consideration to how you can facilitate that with your platform right now?
Yeah, so you know, I actually do have a couple projects in the works. unfortunately, it's nothing that I could talk about right now because it's still
Dude,
so
this is
early.
literally it's what we do over here. What we do is we Jedi mind trick our guests, pull out the information that they don't want anyone to know, and then we spread it all over the intergalactic system.
Yep.
Drop the mic before they get to drop the mic. Come on, give us some heat, bruh.
I have been asked. I have been asked to potentially take part in like a professional speaker series.
Oh, fantastic.
And that's not really one of my projects. But I mean, really, the biggest thing that I try and do is, in addition to the funny content, I try and give my own leadership anecdotes. You know what I mean? And when I started doing that, I was really nervous because I was like, "What do I know? I'm 30 years old and I'm a lieutenant." You know what I mean? Like, what do I have to offer
I'll
anybody?
tell you right now, nothing. Almost nothing. But you've got a good sense of humor, and that counts.
Yeah, and so it was funny because when I started giving these leadership anecdotes and just giving, a little bit of coaching and mentoring, I guess, if you want to call it that, things that I wish I would have known when I was a more junior leader. Gosh, people were so responsive to it, and they liked it, and that's when I really started getting messages from some more senior leaders in the Army and the other branches of service. And they were like, "Dude, we love it. Like, keep doing this. You're pushing the message that we want people to get, and you're reaching a ton of people."
It was a gutsy move, by the way. It must have taken some conviction, or maybe it took a few sleepless nights to get right with what you were doing, maybe 10 or 15 or
sleepless
20
nights
days
for
into
sure.
it. Yeah, for sure. So now, at what point did you, or have you, kind of calibrated with maybe the 6 or 10 guys or girls who are super legit in your world, whatever that means? And did you reach out to them and say, man, I feel like I'm getting this is a bit of a tidal wave that I'm getting hit. Should I keep swimming into it, or should I like grab a life vest and duck out?
Yeah, honestly, I kind of just kept doing it, and then I expected that somebody would tell me to stop if they wanted me to stop. So,
So you just drove forward. Okay.
That's kind of the that's kind of the method that I used. But yeah, and I fully expected at some point for somebody to be like, "Hey, you can't do that." But I made sure I understood the policy and I followed the rules, and I think that's why nobody's had an issue with it. Even with some of the things that I talk about, which is talking about some of the problems that we have.
For sure. Have you ever wanted to quit?
There was definitely a period where I was pretty burnt out. And so I have a system now that makes it pretty easy. It's fairly low effort to do what I'm doing now. So yeah. Oh, I will say, the first time I had a video go like mega viral, like it was over 1 million views in like a couple hours, I almost took it down because I was like, "Oh my God, they're gonna kill me." I was like, "They're gonna come to my house."
Oh yeah, dude. In my head, I'd be thinking the amount of burpees I'm gonna do because of this video.
Tomorrow's gonna hurt. Oh boy, that's awesome. I got a comment here from Max. Says making fun of stupid actions is also a way to teach people what is stupid when they haven't realized it yet. Our 82 vested regulation. Yeah, couldn't agree more. You got any? I was just gonna mention on this. There's like, it's similar. I brought up dogs with my kids the other day, and like how dogs work within a pack. So it's still fresh in my brain. But
Right.
this is how you teach a hierarchy, right? Somebody does something that's not correct. It needs to be brought up and it needs to be held accountable. And even whether that's through humor or through a direct knife hand, hey man, that's not cool. That's part of it, right? That's how you teach people, is you have to call it out. Otherwise it's just, you let it go and then it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. Have you noticed any sort of like actual change in the units that you've been around, or people that have given you stories of like, hey man, I used the lesson that you brought out and it worked really well? Or like, have you gotten any really feedback of direct use of what you put out there?
Yeah, so In the unit I'm in, not really, but like, there's nothing that the stuff that I make fun of, we don't really do in my unit. Like, and people always think that I'm full of it when I say that, or they feel like I have to say that, but I mean, we just don't. There's leadership differences. Not every single decision that every single person in my leadership makes, I'm like, yeah, that's the greatest decision ever. But like, we don't have any like massive glaring problems. But I have gotten messages, and this is a really cool. I'm really glad you asked that question because I tell junior troops this all the time. A lot of people don't realize that they're doing something and it's negatively affecting people. And so sometimes things come from somebody's at a different level and they don't realize, the second and third order effects of what they're doing. So my favorite example to use is formations. Sometimes people don't even realize like that the norm is that a formation started and then they get pulled into something and then that formation just sits there waiting for them. You know what I mean? And so it's a huge waste of everybody's time. And I have had people message me and tell me that they themselves are instituting new policy or changing policy, or I've had junior troops message me and say, hey, my leadership's doing things a little bit different now because of some of your videos. And so that's really cool. And that tells me that people are maybe making mistakes not from a place of malice, but because they genuinely just don't understand what some of the frustrations of junior troops are.
Do you think that they forgot? Like, because I've always wondered this, because there's, when we were in and we were juniors, there was lots of times where you'd sit on formation and you'd be in parade and be like, why are we even here? Because it's, you get the 15-minute to 15-minute to 15-minute to 15-minute timing to make sure that you were there on time. And you're just standing there waiting because the guy at the top doesn't know. But don't they remember? Like, these are common problems between generational things. So I'm just wondering, do you think it's that they don't remember, or do you think that it was never brought up?
Yeah, I think there's 3 reasons. Number one, and I'm not disparaging guys who are not prior enlisted officers right now at all, because we need guys that come straight out of college as officers in the military. They give a fresh look and new perspective. And they also, their knees don't hurt, so they run really fast.
Yeah.
Plus, you can convince them to run even faster. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So those guys, guys that come out of college as pure officers, they don't deal with a lot of the crap that like privates deal with, for example. You know what I mean? Like lieutenants just don't deal with the same thing that privates do. And I've seen that firsthand. Number 2, as you become more senior in leadership, and I tell this to people a lot as well, your focus shifts. Like as an E5 and an E6, physical training was massive for me. Like the physical training program was massive for me. Not as much of a focus now for me as an officer. I have other things I have to focus on. You know what I mean? I have to focus on resourcing and planning operations, training, stuff like that. And so, that's an NCO job. So my focus has shifted. And so, that's just kind of a natural consequence of becoming more senior in leadership. And then, I think some people do forget. They forget what it was like. I think it's easy to forget too, especially if you got like fast tracked, and you didn't have to deal with the crap for as long as some of us did. It took me a long time to make Sergeant E5. And I was enlisted for almost 10 years before I, crossed over as an officer. So, yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
I got a challenge for you. So I do believe I've heard you say that you're in exercise science, or right? So you're educated in exercise, but I also do recall a video where you have been making, not fun of, but making social commentary on how the people who are running the run that day don't know how to run and are running it wrong. And how, 6 years later, no one's got any knees because the guy who was teaching us how to run doesn't have any knees himself, kind of thing. And so you, with your exercise background, could have at some point run a good PT session in the morning, but now you're not that guy. Now it's your senior NCO or your sergeant who's running it. And you're in the office doing your paperwork, looking out the window thinking, man, that guy's doing it wrong. or not. But let's say you're thinking, man, that guy's doing it wrong. Now what? Now what do you think?
Yeah. So that's a really, really great question. I talked to the guy who's going to be my platoon sergeant. I'm going to be taking a platoon in the next couple months, and I told him, I said, you need to send me the PT plan. I want to review it.
Nice.
And my style of leadership since becoming an officer, I don't want to call it hands off, but I really want to give people wide left and right limits. I don't want to just get it my fingers in everybody's Cheerios. I want people to be able to lead how they want to lead, and even make mistakes. Give people the leeway to make mistakes. Now, I'm going to teach him what at least a little bit of what I know, because if you don't have any educational background in fitness, like, I mean, I thought I knew a lot about fitness until I got one personal training certification, and now I have 3 personal training certifications and a bachelor's degree. And it's kind of like the more you learn, the less you know, type of thing. But yeah, in the U.S. military, I don't know how it is in the Canadian military, but in the U.S. military, it's very much expected that the platoon leader is doing PT with the guys. You know what I mean? So I'll be there with them. If it sucks, I'll be sucking too. But yeah, that's how I'm kind of, that's how I'm going to verify, right? Trust but verify. So I'm going to make sure that the PT plan is something that I would want it to be. But yeah, hope that answers the question.
That's a great question. Now I've got a follow on is you were speaking about change. You've changed your roles. You've changed your directions on leadership to some degree. As you move up, you've got to adapt to the circumstances. Now we've been talking about institutionally. I just would like to challenge you personally. And it's with this. What have you noticed as a change within yourself since you started doing all of this?
I've become a lot more sensitive to I've become a lot more sensitive to how my jokes can possibly affect people. One time I made a joke about people having like specific mannerisms, because I have specific mannerisms. Like I have like weird nervous tics that I do. And so I made a video about it, and somebody came up to me and they were like, "Hey, were you poking fun at this person?" And I was like, "Oh no, I was making fun of myself. Like I do that." And they were like, "Oh, well, that person does that too." And I took the video down because I was like, I don't want people to think I'm rudely making fun of something that they do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't mind it, because if somebody made fun of one of my tics, I'd just be like, whatever, you're a jerk. Like,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. I'm trying to make fun of the things that deserve to be made fun of. You know what I mean?
I like that. The concept of deserving to be made fun of. Well, it makes sense too, because you can make fun of anything, right? And you can poke fun at anything, and you can be mean-spirited about anything. But if something deserves to be made fun of, then I think that it's so blaringly obvious that it needs, like, it's got to be called out.
Like people acting like mustaches make you undisciplined. That deserves to be made fun of. And as soon as I find out that somebody feels like that in an organization, I grow a mustache immediately.
Yeah. Well, I guess conversely, some people feel that when they grow a mustache, now they're large and in charge. Now they're part of a secret unit. So there's that as well.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I do like my beard, and I really, the fact that up here in Canada they actually just passed, they just allowed for people to grow beards now, and so I had this, and I got a bunch of buddies of mine who are veterans who have like big long beards, and they're like, "Guess I'm getting back in, boys, because I can grow a beard now."
Funny.
Yeah, well, the fun fact on growing beards is it's not a qualification; it's body hair. So the guy who's quite pleased to rejoin, or quite pleased that now you can grow a beard, didn't make you smarter. It didn't make you better.
No, it didn't.
It just allowed you to grow hair. Congratulations.
Well, this is part of the stuff that makes the Army, military in general, just kind of fun, because if you can't learn how to deal with the stupidities of some of the things, then it's a horrible experience. And you can spend a lot of time in the military that just and it's gonna suck. But if you can't sit there and kind of giggle about it, like, you know, you're sitting in a trench that's got water up to your knees, and you're there watching, staring at pitch black, and you're like, "Yep, this is how I'm spending the night."
I tell people that. Like I've told people that before. People will honestly the people joining the military because of my content has been pretty it's been the response has been pretty crazy, honestly. I get messages literally every single day from people wanting to join. But, you know, I get some people do comment every once in a while and it's very infrequent, but they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I knew I shouldn't have joined the military." And it's like, bro, if the idea of sitting in a formation for 3 hours is the thing that made you not want to join an organization where our only job is to go to war for the nation, I'm really glad you did not join.
Yeah, see you
like
later.
if that's the reason, then bye. Like, we don't want you. You know, like, you're clearly not the dude that's gonna dig a hole in the ground and crap in it, like
Yeah.
I've had to do many
Yeah.
times. Like, it's not always fun, bro. Like, what?
Yeah, it ain't
Funny.
tiddlywinks.
It definitely is not tiddlywinks. Yeah, it's kind of funny when we were talking earlier. I'd said that, you know, we don't really. It's not, the military isn't really the focus of the show, but it's kind of hilarious that we just spent almost an hour talking about the military and all the stuff,
Yeah.
the funniness that you get into when you're in there. But
So I see part of your success as you're doing this right now is your consistency of thematic drive. So you focused on what you focused, and the consistency of that focus it's now a body of work that people can relate to, and they kind of know what you're going to put out tomorrow or the following day, or maybe by the end of the year, they'll expect a certain pattern, a certain rhythm of what you're doing. Do you see that changing at all this year?
No, I don't think so. You know, at some point, this will probably be more systematic when I have, you know, I don't know, probably when I have money to pay somebody to help me make it more systematic. Because this is all, it's just me at this point. And so that's part of the reason why the content has to, I don't like saying low effort, but realistically, that's the best way to describe it.
Well, it's the effort that you can put into it.
Myself.
Yeah, it's what you're doing is putting the effort into it that it requires right now, because you're probably busier doing other more important things. Now, the weird part for me is that your job is the primary mission, but what you've got going on, we'll call it the side gig, the hustle, the good stuff that you're putting out. At some point, that is going to be maybe the primary mission. You know what I mean? Like, it's the scale of impact. You're impacting your men in your unit, but you're impacting the interwebs on your spare time. So I'm curious as to whether you've given that any thought on prioritization.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I have some pretty hardline rules for the content. Number one, I never make fun of anybody specifically, because in my opinion, that would be unprofessional. Number two, I do not make content about anything that is going on in my current unit. And I do that because as a leader, I would not want to have some Yahoo like making fun of the decisions I'm making on the internet, because sometimes as leaders, we have to make hard decisions that people will not like. And that just is what it is.
Yeah, of course.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And so I don't make content about my current unit. And then number three, I absolutely never ever make content during the duty day. It is always in my off time. Now I'll make it during lunch, right? Sometimes I eat lunch a little faster if I know I've got like 5 ideas just burning a hole in my brain. And then I run back to my room, you know, while I'm still on lunch and make it, but absolutely not while I'm at work. But to answer your question directly, I've got another 9 years before I can retire, and I absolutely see this becoming, you know, the full-time thing after I retire. And I've also got I haven't even been doing this for a year, and I've already got some pretty cool opportunities opening up for me. I'm going to try and get into stand-up comedy in a couple months. Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. And honestly, I'm just excited to see where this goes, because I haven't been on any of the 4 platforms that I'm on. I haven't been on a single one of them for longer than like 8 months. And between all of them, I'm at like 570,000 followers. So like I'm really excited to see where this gets to in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
And not an empty congratulations, by the way, because as I see it, well deserved because you earned it. I mean, you've scrabbled
I
your way
appreciate it.
out of that entrenching tool hole that you were sitting in, and now you're standing on the edge looking around. So good job, pal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's pretty awesome stuff. I just really enjoy a lot of it, especially the veterans in the workplace. Those are probably my favorites, I gotta say, because I just great
Yeah,
characters.
I love making those.
They're great. So we're almost at time here, but do you have any thoughts, any final thoughts, anything burning a hole in your brain at the moment, just before we shut her down?
Yeah, absolutely. For anybody out there who's even had the inkling or the idea that you want to join the military, I get a lot of people surprisingly messaging me asking me like if they are capable of joining. I'm telling you right now, you do not need to be superhuman or even like cut from a different cloth. I don't know if that is an expression for you guys in Canada, but
It is.
you could be just a normal human being, and as long as you don't quit in basic training and your job school for the military, like we will turn you into what we need you to be. It does not take some magical superhuman to do what we do. So with that said, it's also an amazing way to kickstart your adult life and really kind of slingshot yourself into success if you leverage it correctly. So do it. Join.
I like that. I like that a lot. Shaun, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, you just compartmentalize the message that we try to say over here on a pretty regular basis. Now, it usually takes us a lot longer to say it. So
It does.
thanks for compartmentalizing it into a well-distilled paragraph, because it's right on the money. What I would like to say is, adding on to generally what you've said, is have the conviction to engage in something, anything. And in this case, it might be the military, or it might be stand-up comedy. Whatever it is, just follow your gut and engage.
100%.
Go out and crush it. Take a chance. You've got to be
Yeah.
gutsy to follow your gut. And that's what you did. And so the effort, the belief in yourself of making we'll call it a gamble, it's really paid off. But not only for you. The more important part, it's really paid off for the institution that you're in. It's really paid off for the multi-country institutions that are paying attention to it. And it's really working for guys like us. I really dig what you're doing. So don't change a thing, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
My final thoughts are I agree with Shaun. So just take what he said and times to it. But I really appreciate you being on here, brother. It's been a great conversation. You're welcome to join us anytime. I got an open seat here for you, no problem. And when you get back home where you have better internet connection, we can always link up again. We'll get you on here. It's our pleasure having you on here, just so you know.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
And as we learn, as we build, as we grow, through humor, through pointing out little pieces of issues that we have, by alleviating those things into the world, we can get better every day. You can do that here with us on The Collective. Chimo, we'll see you all tomorrow.
Chimo.